on our last stop to our final destination. We're talking about Final Destination 5, and this movie has officially redeemed the franchise from how awful Final Destination 4/3D was. This movie
God,
rocks.
I know it's so sad to think that like 4 could have destroyed the whole thing because it's so bad, but thank God it made money at least, and thank God for Final Destination 5. What a way to end a franchise, or so we thought. Obviously, they're, continuing it again because they're fucking smart. They should be putting one of these out every 2 years.
Yeah. Like if Saw could go
Thank you.
for 2 decades, like why not Final Destination? I mean, the last one, the 3D one, was easily the most successful. It did 180 million worldwide, and I would have totally thought that this one would have had a bad drop from how soured people were from the 3D movie. But this one did 157 million worldwide. So it's the second most successful of the entire franchise.
Did you say 4 did 180 million?
Yeah.
That is a sketchy number for a Final Destination movie. Just saying, whenever you see 180, everything goes to shit.
Touche.
That's the one redeeming quality we have about 4. Or maybe that's because 4 is officially on death's list because it sucks.
Yeah. It was meant to die and never
Yeah.
be talked about again.
Yep.
But yeah, this movie rocked. I mean, just from like the opening premonition, like the whole bridge sequence was a better 3D movie than anything we got from the last one.
Thank you. Just in the opening sequence, they show you like, hey, we're going to show you good 3D. Like we're going to show you right off the bat that you're in good hands. It's okay, baby. We're here and we're going to make it okay. And that's what I felt when I watched this movie because there's so much trepidation after 5 and you're like, "Oh god, there's 3D in this one again." But it just they do it well and they show you right from the bat like, "Okay, we're good. We're in good hands. It's going to be okay."
Yeah. Like watching this movie, I'm like, do I actually kind of want to watch this in 3D?
Yeah.
It was great. Like in the whole bridge sequence, like you get the part where the woman falls from the bridge and you're like, oh, she's gonna land on the boat. Nope, she gets skewered by the boat.
Wonderful.
You don't even see it coming. It's like the opposite of the last one where like you see the tire flying through the air and you're like, oh, it's gonna hit her. It's like,
yeah, it's like the characters are the only ones who don't see shit coming in that movie, but you're like, no, I've seen that a mile away because like they just are fucking obvious. But yeah, this one, like you're looking at her from the top, like falling down, so you don't see it. Skewers are and intestines are popping out right at you. It's so fucking wonderful. I couldn't tell you how delighted I was, Jace. After fucking 4 and all the shit that they did with the CGI and the 3D that looked so bad, that was like obviously that wasn't it was partially practical maybe, but like either way it looked 10 times better.
It's like this was the correct way to do 3D and CGI versus the last part just was not.
I would believe that these guys talked to fucking James Cameron's Avatar crew, not the last movie guys. Jesus. But yeah, I love the way that they use it for like the effects and everything like that. But like even the bridge collapsing at the end, it just looks so real.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying. And plus, this is like apparently the longest opening disaster of all the movies. It's like almost 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
After the bridge sequence, I paused the movie and I looked up who the director was because I'm like, who is this guy? Because this movie looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's obviously CGI, but it does not look bad. And yes, Stephen Quale. I can't. He's only directed like 6 movies. I haven't seen anything other than this. I'm like, this guy rocks.
Yeah, you haven't seen any of his other movies? I was looking up. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen any of his other movies either. I was looking up the writer, Eric Heisserer. Fuck if I know. But this guy's got a crazy fucking filmography. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, because did you see this too? I'm like, okay, so he did the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, which is horrible. but it says he co-wrote it with someone, so maybe that's why. He
Yeah.
did Final Destination 5 and then The Thing prequel, which is
Mhm.
really, it's not the screenplay that's the problem with that movie, I would say.
Yeah.
And then he also did Lights Out and then Arrival, which is an incredible movie, and then Bird
Oscar-nominated
Box.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
Bird
fucking
Box.
Bird Box, and I'm like, "Who is this guy?" That was,
And
like, the
then
weirdest fucking resume I've ever seen, but I was
and
like,
then he did
he nailed it.
Bloodshot.
Oh, which is that the Hitman movie?
That's the Vin Diesel.
Yeah. Yes, I remember. Okay, gross. Yeah, so this guy's got, like, the weirdest resume, but, like, he nailed it with this, and I guess I don't know if it was, like I thought, like, maybe this was a unique idea because this director is, like, the first new director they've had in the
Mhm.
franchise, right?
Yeah.
Since 2, because it was repeats for 3 and 4. So to have this new energy, I was like, "What the fuck? Is he the guy who came up with the prequel?" I guess it was, like, the producers and, like, the creators of it who, like, had the concept of the prequel already
Yeah.
planned, like, that's how they were gonna do it, but it was a surprise to do 5 because they didn't think that's why they named the 4th one The Final Destination. And then they're like,
Yeah.
"Just kidding, here's the 5th one. We'll just pretend that we didn't do that."
Yeah, I was very interested in watching this one because I'd never seen it before. But then, like having watched the last four, like you have the pair of directors, and it's very evident like their styles in their movies. Like
Mhm.
James Wong leans more into like the horror side of it, whereas what's the other director?
David R. Ellis, who did 2
Yeah,
and
like
4.
he leans a little bit more into kind of like the comedy, horror
Mhm.
comedy side of it. Um, and this one definitely leans more into the serious horror side.
Yeah, I feel like it's got a lot of the energy from, like, 1 and 3 where it's still, like, a fucked up situation. It's also got way better characters than any single person in the 4th movie. It's, like, insane. I'm like, "How did they fuck up every single character?" Well, I mean, they you could barely call them characters before, but in 5, it's like, "Wow, this is what it." I mean, every little character gets a little moment even on the
Yeah.
day at the bus, like, before they go, which it's hilarious to me that they work at an office or they work at a paper company, which is like, did they do that because of The Office being popular? I mean, spoiler alert, we all know that this movie, if you've seen this, it's a prequel. So it makes sense to set it if it's set in like 2000, it would make sense to still be a paper company, but it was just funny.
Well, and then they have David
Kochner. Yep.
Kushner,
Todd
who
Packer,
the Pac-Man.
the Pac-Man. So good to
So,
see him in this movie. I was like, what the fuck? He's in this movie? And then the other guy from Babylon, what's his name?
uh
PJ Byrne, that's who it is.
oh yes.
I love him he made me obsessed with him in Babylon, but I've just in general, whenever he pops up in comedy, I think he's hilarious. He's so fucking funny in this movie. Like that last movie, like I'm like, oh yeah, that guy was like the guy who was an asshole in the 4th one. It's like you're barely able to be like, okay, he's kind of okay. To like I can like he's kind of funny. I don't know.
Yeah.
This one, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what we're missing. This guy's a fucking piece of shit. I love it.
It's so funny that he's like this guy that's pulling multiple women, and he's
On the
just like a
phone all the
total
time.
and he's a total nerd. Like he's not even like a stereotypical hot guy. Like he's just
Because
pulling.
it's 2000. He has a fucking cell phone. Like he's a rich guy.
I
This
guess
is back.
so.
You got to think about the time too. And I never even noticed it. Like I'm sure people probably didn't even think about it because it was like a flip phone the whole time, and like no one else is on their cell phones. Or like, hey, I found out about all these other incidents that happened before us. Like they actually kind of do it like the first movie again, where everyone's kind of figuring shit out as it goes along.
Yeah. I was thinking after the bridge sequence and then before we get to the first real kill, I was like, this is the first movie since the first one that hasn't explained the entire process or pattern because of what they found on the internet.
Yeah, it was nice. It was kind of refreshing. I'm like, oh shit, these are like old school detective kids. Look at this shit. I have to say, before we leave the bridge sequence, because like there's so many good kills in this movie. I
Hmm.
don't know if you have anything else for the bridge disaster, but the tar death is like gnarly.
Oh yeah. I
That
thought
one surprised me.
I thought all the premonition deaths were great. Like when PJ Bryan, like when he the belly flop in the bus, I thought that looked awesome. I
Yeah,
was
that was super like, oh my
surprised.
god. I was like, dude,
Yeah,
that's terrifying. Everybody had a terrifying death.
yeah,
Like
and then
literally.
the oil melting,
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
And then he just falls off the bridge. You're like, dude, that guy's fucked. And then the other chick, like, who like loses her glasses. I was like, oh, Jace, I wonder if you can relate to that.
Yeah.
That was fucking scary. Being like, oh shit, I'm on a bridge and I can't see. And then when she falls in the water and it's like, oh, she's alive. And then they're like, oh, a car's falling on her. Oh, great. I love the guy who looks like Tom Cruise Jr. You know, I'm just gonna call him that, but his name is Peter in the movie. He's like the main guy's best friend. Doesn't he look
Yeah, yeah.
just like Tom Cruise? It's crazy.
Yeah, he kind of does.
It's that
I was
scene on the bridge when like he sees the cables start snapping and he like just switches into Tom Cruise mode and runs like 10 times faster. And just the way that he runs, it's like, I'm like, that's Tom Cruise. And then he runs so fast, and then the other guy doesn't even say like we have to jump. He just like runs and like fucking flies across the opening. I loved it. It was so funny. But yeah, then
Oh.
he gets it like with the poles through the face. There's just no
Mhm.
escaping death, man. These premonition deaths. I feel like in the first movie you only get to see a couple people really die or like get sucked out of the plane. It's mostly like the main kid. And then like as the movies go on, you get to see every single other character die in the premonition.
Mhm.
So I guess it makes sense they get longer, but I feel like this might be the only movie where like all the characters you're introduced to all live, like or survive the premonition, right? Like after the premonition, he saves all the characters that we've introduced to. Like there's no one that we met, like a boyfriend or whoever who dies. Like all the people who die are people that we don't know,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
right?
Now that you
I
mention it.
guess 4
Yeah.
kind of does that too, but then again, I just don't remember anyone from that
We
movie,
don't
so
need
I don't care.
we don't need to talk about 4.
Cool.
Uh
But I did think that that was interesting because there's like a lot of them, but I liked every single character.
yeah. I liked them all too. I would say the characters on this, they're not Final Destination 3 level. I would put them at Final Destination 1. So
Yes,
they're they're
agreed.
all good characters. None of them are just totally ridiculous like
They have
Final
distinct
Destination 4.
personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's the bad or like the popular guy or whatever who like goes bad. Once like shit, once his girlfriend dies and he turns dark. It's like the same kind of deal. These guys get fucked up every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always like I feel like and then also I was like Courtney B. Vance is playing the fucking agent, the FBI agent, which I'm like, you know, from he played Johnny Cochran on the American
Yeah.
Crime Story OJ show. And I'm just like, this must have been before that. Cause like I was like, there's no way he'd be in Final Destination 5. I just feel like he's an incredible actor, but he was a welcome surprise. I always love to see
Yeah.
him. And Tony Todd back. What a wonderful day.
Yeah, good to have him back, and he was in more than one scene.
And not even just at the fucking like morgue. He was like all over the place. I
Yeah,
loved it. He kept popping up,
yeah.
creeping.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you this because I was really confused by the setting of this movie. So they all go on the bus like it's a corporate retreat.
It's like on The Office when they take the bus and they go to like the beach day, but they're going to a corporate retreat for the weekend or whatever.
But the thing that confused me is that like the main guy Sam, he works in a restaurant, and then
He also works at the paper company.
okay, so that's what it was. He was like part-time at the paper
Yeah.
company. Okay,
And
I
that's
was
why at the
confused.
beginning his friend's like, are you going to be a sales guy or are you going to be a chef guy? Like, okay. I guess
I was I was confused because I'm like, okay, so there's a restaurant involved with some of these people, and then there's also like a whole like manufacturing plant.
yeah.
What is this, like a restaurant franchise corporate situation? And then there's the restaurant, but then I was so confused. I was like, we're moving past this. I don't understand it, but like I'm confused by
Think
this.
about it like the office for like the warehouse, but it's like a huge warehouse. It's like a whole plant instead of just
Yeah.
a warehouse, but it's basically like the same thing. So like that one guy is like the foreman down there or whatever.
Yeah, so that was kind of confusing. But let's get to the real stuff, okay?
The
We
deaths.
get to death. Gnarly death.
Each
I'm
one.
gonna say before we actually do this, I think this movie has cumulatively the best death score.
I agree.
Like,
They're all bangers.
yeah, the only one that's like not a great death is the guy who gets the hook through the mouth.
Yeah.
But that entire death is to play into the thing at the end. So like I
Yep.
don't even count that against it.
No, it's perfectly
Um,
fine.
but
And
every
but that's a
death,
bonus death because it's not
yeah,
even one of the characters. So it's like, welcome. Perfect. We don't care.
but like every death in this movie is really good, and they start off on the tops. The
This is
gymnastic
definitely the
death.
best one. Yeah, the gymnastics death. I think it has to be declared before we've even gotten to the rest of them that this is the best.
In the movie, yes. Like, oh my god, there's another death later on that could have been up there with it,
Mm-hmm.
but watching this, there's so much in this whole sequence that like I was on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
First off, again, having not seen this, didn't know it was coming. Like the screw on the balance beam.
Oh my God. I'm just like, you're fucking pouring sweat just watching those girls like moving around the balance beam. You're like, oh my God, it's going to be the screw. I know it. And you're like, oh, you're just waiting for it. And when the main girl doesn't get on it, you're like, I'm kind of relieved, but I'm still really stressed out because now, like, where is it going to come from?
Well, and then like how they shot it, like with them like curling and arching their foot, like riding right over it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh,
I know. It's like a masterclass, that whole sequence. I think the reason that it's the best for me is because the tension leading up to it is incredible. And it's nothing like where there's all these red herrings. It's like every little thing that you notice that you're stressed about ends up playing a little part, right?
yeah.
So it's great because it all works together weirdly, but it's so like weird. Like the whole time I'm just like, even though now I know how it ends, I'm still stressed out watching him with that screw. Like, God, it's just a great scene.
The screw immediately took me back to watching X when the guy is walking into the barn and like you just see the screw and him walking towards you. You're like, no, 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 don't do it. No.
Woof. Just look, jackass. It's like a huge fucking nail, too. That's even worse. But yeah, the screw, because you're like, they're on the balance beam, like she's gonna like fall off and break her neck, is what you're assuming if she like steps on a screw. But then it's like, oh no, that would be the easy way to go. Death is like a fucking artist, is what I'm convinced of after these movies. He's beautiful. I mean, everything he's doing, it's fucked up, but it's pretty incredible.
I'm convinced he's the Home Alone kid. Like they're so elaborate.
It's either like the kid from Home Alone. There's all these other theories that he grew up to be Jigsaw, which like
yeah.
makes sense, but like also could be Death. You never know. He loves his little traps.
Well, and then a little trivia that I saw is that not the girl that dies, but the girl who ends up stepping on the screw, she is actually an Olympic gymnast.
Yeah.
And which makes a lot of sense in my mind because when I was watching and like you see that one scene of her on the bounce beam and she does a backflip and lands on her hands on the beam, I was like, what kind of stunt person is that? That's the craziest shit I've seen in the movie so far.
That's some gymnast shit, man. You have to be a gymnast to be able to do that shit. And that's the thing, is like I just had no idea where Death was coming from, except like it was coming. Like you just don't know. You're just like, I don't know what it's gonna look like. I could never have predicted what actually happens. It's so much tension and such a slow buildup that the fact that like when she dies, it's like probably almost instant.
Yeah.
It's way crazier. Like I'm stunned. Like you're like, what?
When it happened and like she hit the ground, I watching by myself went, oh, like
it kind of felt like the same effect of like when that kid fell over the stairs and
Mhm.
like Halloween ends and bounced back up after he hit the ground. You're like, oh shit, that guy's fucking dead. Like that. It was like because I love it because it's like the other girl steps on the screw, she falls off, she hits the sand blows in the fan, she can't see shit, and then she fucking falls off the thing and lands like a fucking pretzel, all broken and shit. It's fucking gnarly. And then some idiot, they're like, obviously they're like, don't touch her, but then the other girl's like, are you okay? And I'm like, obviously fucking not. Look at her. You could I don't have to even check. I could see from a distance that bitch is dead. There's no way she's still alive, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's pretty obvious. It's like it's so gnarly and it's very original because I just don't think I didn't know the human body could do that.
just snapped in half, and like shout out to the sound editing crew because oh my god,
Yeah, that crunch was particularly effective.
like that crunch was so effective that like if I walked out of the room when it happened and all I heard was the crunch, I would have been like, "What happened?" I'd run back and I would rewind it. Like,
Yep, exactly. It's pretty gnarly. It fits. It's a very great way to go. This Final Destination, we're really turning things up a notch. You're like, "Oh my god, that's the first one?" I mean, the first one is always usually pretty fun and unique. It has to be. It's the first
yeah,
one, right? But
yeah.
wow, what a banger. And you're like, "How are they going to keep doing this?" And you're like, then it's just fucking banger after banger. I don't know how they did it.
It was after that death that I was like, okay, all I've seen so far is the bridge sequence in the gymnast sequence. And I was like, this is Scream 4. This
Yeah.
is the random movie in the middle that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm at the beginning of the movie. I'm ready
Yeah.
for the rest.
That's what I'm saying.
By the end, I'm like, yeah, this is Scream 4. Like, how did we not get another set of trilogy? Like, how do we
Thank
get
you.
another trilogy after this? Like,
Thank you,
Scream
right?
4 should have continued. This should
Agreed.
have continued from here.
Jace, I've
I don't
never loved you
understand it.
more. I just gotta say it. I've never loved you anymore. This is exactly what I've been saying, ranting to the walls in my house for years. I agree.
Oh,
It's such a banger, and I hope that whoever like the writer, director, whoever was like the key to making this movie incredible, I hope they're still part of the franchise. That's
yeah.
all.
So then we go from the gymnast death to probably one of the funniest parts of the entire movie, the acupuncture death.
When he says, "Yum yum, dim sum," I'm like, "God damn it, this fucking idiot!" I love to hate him so much.
Or when he says, he's like, I don't catch any diseases I didn't earn.
Yeah, or he even says like, a whole country of people can't be Wong," and he goes, "Did you hear me? I said Wong." He goes, "You get it," but it's just like he's the worst, but he's so funny that whole sequence and trying to get like an erotic massage. And I'm like, what the fuck? That should have been the first clue that this movie was like set in 2000 because those guys are just like, I mean, he would have been canceled a long time ago. But like also like it's a bit much. It fits though for the time. And if you catch it, his certificate that he steals from a dead coworker is like expires 2001.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I've only noticed it on like the fifth rewatch, so don't feel too bad.
So the I mean, this whole part is great.
The massage parlor.
The massage parlor, as
It's
they're
one of those.
not known anymore, but
Yeah, but like also it's like the way that I told you with the fourth movie. I was like, what are they doing trying to make me tense during a fucking girl getting her hair cut? That's so dumb. But I'm
yeah.
like, you wouldn't normally think that it would be like, oh, like someone getting a massage. Like that doesn't sound like scary at all. But the
Yeah.
way that they do it with the acupuncture is really good. That was the way to access the right fear in that comfortable place. And
Oh, yeah.
now would make me scared of that comfortable place. That's the effective way to do it. I feel like Final Destination 4 just tried, but they were like, we'll just throw a bunch of shit at you and see if anything sticks. No. The acupuncture, I've never done it, but I'm like, I don't know if I could now. Like, if you
I was about
fall over and they go deep into you, that was fucked.
I was about to ask you if you've ever had acupuncture.
Have
I've
you?
had it. Yeah.
Is it
It's
good?
yeah, it's really good. I mean, you don't feel it. Like, the needles are so small and stuff, like, you don't feel it.
Unless you
But
fall
then
face forward on the ground.
yeah, you might feel it then when it actually, like, punctures
'Cause those are
organs and
fucking
stuff.
long. I mean, I feel like this movie are they that long, the needles? That's what I wanted to ask. I didn't know if you had done it.
Uh, I mean, maybe back in 2000.
Okay.
I mean, but the ones I've had are very short, and
Maybe
also,
they
like
made them longer just for the effect.
yeah, and also, like, I mean, maybe you get that many put on you, but, like, for the most part, they focus on, like, specific parts of the body.
Oh, so they don't just do them everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I mean, I've never gotten acupuncture, but I kind of felt like Ben Wyatt when they try to get him to do that on like their Treat Yourself Day on Parks and Rec. And then
Yeah.
they're like, "Aren't you so relaxed?" He's like, "I've literally never been more stressed in my life." And I'm like, that's how I would feel. And like that's how I already was kind of worried. So this whole sequence put me off of that. And it's great with like there's a little red herring shit going on here, but it all again plays to the final result. So it's not a
Yeah.
stupid red herring. But like you
Yeah.
think, oh, the acupuncture needles, and then it's like, well, those don't go deep enough. But he pulls one out, and that's a good practical effect. That made me go, ooh.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, when he falls off the bed and lands face first, I was
Mhm.
just like, "Ooh!" I
Did
was
you
just
think
like
he was dead?
I didn't even think about that, but just, like, I immediately just, like, felt all the needles and
Yep.
in his face and in his head, like, you land on that, and it just gets pushed into you, I'm like, "Oh, that is the nightmare."
Yeah, exactly. It's like a
Like
very visceral thing that you can kind of picture exactly. Like when he hits, it's like they don't even have to show that. And then they
yeah,
just show it like afterwards and they're all bent and like fucked. I'm like, oh God, that was gnarly. And then like because it's a fire, and then he like you think he's gonna be like because he's also in the oil, like he gets the oil on him. And so you
mhm.
think like he's gonna get on fire, but then he avoids the fire, and you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen to this guy? And then of course it's the Buddha statue.
He gets the Buddha ass blast.
Right to the face, and his head just explodes. Good 3D, like some fun splatter there. You kind of feel like one of the characters, the main guy characters in Final Destination 3, they got splattered with blood in like every scene that they were in when they were
Yeah,
trying to stop people. I felt like that. It was like our own effect. It was
yeah.
great. And I do love how he says to Buddha when he walks in, he touches it and he's like, "Oh, Buddha better cut down on the rice cakes." It's like, I love it. He's like, he touches it. It's like, I should have known. That was when I should have known that that would be the thing.
It was funny. I loved the part when he's like freaking out about it being an older woman, and then she's just like cracking him and stuff. And then he's like, "Oh, actually, that feels amazing." That that reminded me. So when I was like 20 years old, so a while ago, I was up in Alaska, and me and my mom went to a Thai massage place, and my mom got the young girl, and I'm 20, so like no matter what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to have, young hot women, touch me and massage me. That'd be
All
awesome.
right.
That's the
Yeah,
dream.
we
I
know.
got I got the young girl's mother or maybe grandmother, and that woman rocked my world. That was the best massage I've ever had. And ever since then, I'm like, I don't care where I go. I want the oldest person in the house because they know what they're doing. And my mom was like, I had the worst massage. I'm like,
Yeah,
give me
exactly.
the oldest person in the house.
Yeah.
That's what I need.
They always know what the hell that they're up to. I was like, as then he's like all scared and like, no, she's like, Fuhey. And he's like, no Fuhey, no Fuhey. It's like, and then she's just cracking him left and right. And I was like, I feel like I want that. I was like, I want some woman to just come and wreck me. That would feel so good.
of
Oh
of
God.
of all the things that he said, I think the most offensive thing was when he's like, "Can I get subtitles on this person?"
He goes hardcore into the racist shit, but you're like, I guess it is 2000, but like Jesus. He's so effective at making you hate him, but also still being funny, But he's like, on the phone on the bus at the beginning, and he's like, oh, he's talking to some girl. He's like, oh, I'm just with a bunch of the idiots from The Office. And then he's like right next to the boss, Todd Packard. He's like,
Not you,
not
sir.
you, sir. I just love it. He's great. And I was like, I mean, he had to have a really gnarly death, and they nailed it.
They did. It was great. So then we get to the LASIK scene.
Yep. This is my runner-up.
This was the scene that I was saying could have been as horrific as the gymnast one. They just changed how it ended. If they would have ended it with like I don't know, the laser just going through the girl's head, would have been horrible. It reminded me a lot of the tanning bed death.
It did. It was very upsetting, and especially like the tension leading up to it. And when she like fucking pops that button off the thing's eye, I was like, I relate to that. That would be me. Because I don't think I could ever do this. And especially not if I just survived like a near-death experience and someone else I know who was also a survivor just died. I don't think I'd be putting lasers near my eyes. Just saying. I know she's like, I don't want to be blind during something, but like also it's just like the way that what they do show, and like as long as it does last, is really effective and very disgustingly terrifying. Like when the laser's like shooting her in the eye, you're like, oh my God, and her hand blocking it. It's like, it's fucked.
Yeah, it's like, I don't even know if that's how it actually works, but like,
they said like 20 different things had to go wrong. Yeah. Like, I mean, that'll stop me from ever getting LASIK.
Yeah, like that was like the way that they prop her eye open. I'm like, this is some Clockwork Orange shit. Like, yeah,
that was stressful just watching that. And like they're like, and then of course the doctor's like, oh, I'll be right back. It's like, where are you going? The fucking thing's on and I'm strapped in here. Any good doctor would not leave. And then he's just like shooting the shit at the fucking reception desk. He's there for like 20 minutes. It's like, this is not how it would go. Again, a worker is being inattentive and stupid on the job. And this is a doctor, okay? These guys are supposed to be really good.
The doctor is very questionable. And like even the girl points out, like when they go in, they're like, what's the wall of, stuffed animals for? And he's like, it's for my younger patients. Like, how young of patients are you giving LASIK?
I know. It's like, well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I would never be able to handle it as an adult, let alone as a child. I think that scarred me for life. Thank God I wouldn't have seen this movie though first. I definitely would have been more scared. But I agree if they would have ended it there, but then it's like the way that she does die is she like slips on the button and then like falls out the window and falls onto her car, and then her eye pops out and rolls into the road and gets run over. That was great. But it is just, I guess maybe it just fits because it's a reversal of what happened during the premonition, where like it was partially because she couldn't see, but then she fell and then the car fell on her. But then this one, she falls on the car. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's just why. But I agree. If they would have really like just lasered that bitch a little bit more, it might have been the number one death.
Yeah, like just it. I think horrific. And like, I think the tanning beds, they couldn't get out and they just burned.
Exactly. Like that's so like if one of them had gotten out or both of them had gotten out and like died, just like some like gotten shocked or something. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's lame.
Yeah, but it's like her head was her head was locked in. It's like if she just couldn't get out and she just had to endure the laser.
That's what I'm saying.
That would have been like horrific. So, I mean, I still gave it high marks. Like that scene
the number
alone.
2. Yeah, it's definitely the number 2, and it makes sense. I mean, the 2 hot girls have to go first, and they have to get the worst deaths. That's always the hot girls always have to be punished the worst. Why is that? What did we do? I'm just kidding. Not that would be me, but I'm just saying.
When we first saw this girl at the beginning of the movie, I'm like, this girl is clearly inspired by Megan Fox. Like this character is clearly.
I'm like, why is she just walking around with her tits out? Like she takes off her shirt at a work retreat. I'm like, this is weird.
And that was even more confusing when I thought this was a restaurant manufacturing company.
I love that like you just were like, I'm not really sure. You're gonna watch it a few times. There's a lot going on. I think it's just the whirlwind of like 4 had no plot. I don't even know how these people knew each other. But they didn't have a life outside of this premonition shit. They were nothing. And so to see this movie, you're like, oh, so there's like, okay, this guy has 2 jobs. Wow, okay. I didn't even know one job from the last movie except that mechanic guy because he died at work.
I also this scene made me think about all of the industries that this franchise has pissed off over the years. Like you have the airplanes
Mm-hmm.
industry, you have uh logging truckers,
Mm-hmm.
roller coasters, pools,
Mm-hmm.
and now LASIK. Like
Racing
th-
tracks, I guess we can acknowledge. Not that anyone probably cares, but it's a thing.
yeah, clearly
Fuck
not. But
it.
I don't know, like I feel like with this movie having been as successful as it was, there had to have been a little bit of a drop in LASIK procedures.
Oh, sure. Yeah, 100%. Maybe no acupuncture either. Maybe some people dropped out of gymnastics class. I don't know. I would. That would be me.
Oh man. All right, so then we get the Hook death, which is an
Interesting.
interesting point in the movie.
We should talk
Not
about it.
not so because of the Hook death part, but the whole idea that they introduce that
That Tony
it,
Todd introduces. Let's put this blame on the right guy because he's
yeah, yeah.
always throwing crazy ideas at these people and none of them actually work. It's really weird. Where did he
But yeah,
come up with this shit?
well, but the idea that if you are on death's list and you avoid death, if you kill someone, then you get the years of their life added
Yep.
back to yours, balancing out the scales.
So basically, you better go kill a fucking child or a baby if you want to be safe. Because all of the, like, as fucked as that is, but that's like what you really got to do is I got to go for the child. I got to go shoot up a school, which is
That
fucked, But
that
I mean,
that that's how we learn if death is pro-choice or pro-life. Because if he's
true.
pro-life, and you abort a fetus, like you get a whole lifetime theoretically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, 2 for 1, maybe. I don't know. But it's an interesting idea that Tony Todd brings up and never mentions again. I almost think he might now, like after the 5th movie, I'm like, maybe he's a scientist and he's studying death's designs and he's just fucking throwing out ideas to test with these different groups and seeing what works. And oh, okay, another one to check off. The next group, I'll tell him this, see if that works. Like, how does this work? How does he know this? Why is he throwing all these different ideas at everybody and none of it works?
At this point, also knowing that it's a prequel, I kind of think he's just a weird, creepy mortician
Yeah,
that likes to
right.
fuck with people.
Well, because some people think he's like a survivor, like he survived one and that's why he knows. But I'm like, if that's the
Oh,
case, then he's the real asshole because he's telling all these people ways that don't work. He
oh,
hasn't
that's
told one person the real way that he did it.
that's how Final Destination 6 has to end that reveal, and that's why
Right.
he's still alive, is that he keeps the design of death going.
Right? I'm
Oh.
just saying, he's gotta be something with it. But it's interesting that, like, he throws that idea. I think that that was a cool thing. Like, 4 thought that they were coming up with new ideas. 3 didn't even pretend. They're like, "We're just doing the classic." But this one is like, "We're throwing you some new shit," right?
Mhm.
And I love that. The concept, I never thought of it. First off, that was, like, original to me. I was like, "Huh, I guess I never thought about that." They're always
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I gotta, save someone," but it's like, "Oh, yeah, if I kill someone, ha, ha, ha. How does that work?"
Yeah, like the closest that we got to this was in Final Destination 2 when they're like, if you're on the list but you give birth to someone, then you cancel it out. But then it turns out that that person was never on the list to begin with. So we
But they
never actually saw that happen.
well, they do still do the thing where, like, the main girl dies, she drowns and then is revived, so she dies and comes back to life like Jesus. So I guess if
Yeah.
you're Jesus, it works.
Well, we all saw what happened with that. Brian just got full on exploded
Exactly. So death
while grilling.
Brian, death will get back to you, basically. I think the motto is just that, like, no matter what, you guys can kill each other all you want. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, this is the first time where we see, and it's unclear when you're watching the scene if the guy who's on the list, if he like pushes the guy in the way or tries to save him. But then he's like, "No, I think I did it."
I mean, I saw that as him
Him
trying to
pushing,
save him, but
right?
then death killed him. But I don't know. I mean,
He says
good to you.
afterwards that he did it. He's like, "I think I did it." But then they're like, and then that Tom Cruise guy's like, "All right, so that works. Let's fucking do it. We're killing people. Let's fucking go." He's like, "You did it. Just tell me." And then I do love that they're like, "Who's next? Who's next?" And then a wrench. Which what the fuck was that doing in those gears? Jesus Christ, just wrench to the face. Goodbye, Todd Packer. At least he died that way. That's a lot better than the black tar, I gotta say.
Yeah. After the black tar thing, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to watch him get melted later on.
Yeah.
But nope, they Sean William Scotted him.
Yeah.
Just
It's
a
like
quick wrench.
yeah. It's kind of like that's how I'd want to go. I want something quick. I mean, instant death. You know, I'd hate to be like that's what I'm saying is most of the time when they escape the first premonition, it's like they usually have a better death in the premonition. It's a lot simpler and just like
Mhm.
easier. And it's always more complicated and horrible and drawn out when they actually get like caught up by death. So this is the one where I was like, okay, this guy, you know what? That was worthwhile. I'm glad he did that. That was good for him. He should not
My
have had to deal with that.
my favorite part of Todd Packer's death was he dies, and then the lead guy, or Sam, bless his heart, he's not a good actor, but
He's
his
okay.
response was, Dennis, it was Dennis.
You're like, yeah, no shit.
Like, not like, oh my God, what? But Dennis, it was Dennis.
Well, that's what they were asking him. That Tom Cruise kid was like yelling at him, who is it? Give me your name. Who's next? Which, like, this guy, I would think, like, he's all upset about his girlfriend, Candace. Oh, Candace deserved to live. Did she? I don't know. She was nothing. She was a real nothing burger to me. I felt like he should be wanting to meet death so that he could, like, be with her again because he was really devoted to her. I'm like, girl, there's a ton of other girls out there, man. Just relax. And you're going to be dead soon anyways.
It's little moments like that, which is why Final Destination 3 stays on the top in my board. Just people actually have appropriate reactions to the murders and deaths that happen in that movie.
This one, it's a little bit less.
I mean, that's a pretty consistent thing across all of the movies. But
I mean, but for these people, they're going from just horrifying scene to horrifying scene. After a while, you're just fazed by it. All right, we gotta go see who's next.
At this point, your death is my revelation.
Yeah, but
my
the thing
epiphany.
is, my real problem with the main guy is just like, what a typical fucking man. I feel like every man I've ever known is like, oh, I can never call out sick. I'm a man. I never miss work. Right. And it's like, he's fucking on death's list. Like, we don't know who's next. The other guy is like, I'm going to go kill somebody. Who knows if it's going to be you? And like, death is out after you. His girlfriend's like, why aren't you going to work? He's like, well, he's going to get me anywhere. I'm like, you work in a fucking kitchen with all these fucking weapons, man.
Part-time.
Call out sick. What is it with men? What is your problem? Who hurt you? Why can't you ever just fucking take a day, a mental health day? That's if being on death's list doesn't qualify for a mental health day, I don't know what does.
You just gave me the greatest idea for a podcast ever. I interview men exclusively, and the podcast is called Who Hurt You?
Yeah, exactly. They'll never talk about
why they don't take time for themselves.
They'll never explain it. It'll just turn into nothing. I have to be there to yell at them, Jace. Come on. You can't do it without me. What are you thinking?
Oh.
So then, we get the shooting and the stabbing, which is probably the lamest deaths.
Oh, the fight?
Yeah, because the friends, of course, like, I'm going to kill both of you.
Yes. So that comparatively is very lame. But I actually really loved this whole part because I feel like it's the first time in the entire franchise that they've actually, like, the whole killing someone gives you your life back. It's the first time that they've ever kind of innovated on the formula to where, like, how do we make people other than death be villains?
Yeah.
And so then it actually creates a reasonable, like, idea of like, oh, I hate these people. I want to get revenge on them. Kind of like in the third one, you have the goth kid who, like, I'm going to kill you. But then they're like, if I kill you, then I also am not going to die because I'm on the list. I actually really loved how they did that. And the
way
fight
better than the other.
Yeah, like the fight isn't like this crazy death or whatever. But I thought like it made a lot of sense, which I really liked.
I think it was probably one of the better, like, final act showdowns. I feel like that's typically where the movies kinda lose some steam. I think 3 was pretty good all the way through, but, like,
Mhm.
I think 4 and, like, 2 and 1 get kinda muddled by the end. I'm like, "What's going on here?" And
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, then they have, like, a twist ending, of course, but this one I felt like with the whole fight over that and that whole thing where he's more of the villain, and then also the misdirect with the gun on the stove heating up the whole
Mhm.
time, you're like, "Oh god, this is gonna be bad." But then because he kills his friend, it's like his friend had already killed the cop, so then the gun doesn't shoot him, and you're like, "Oh, so it does work?" I was like,
Yeah.
"If this really works, like, this would be a bullshit move on Tony Todd to not tell anybody else." But maybe he'll get killed if that happens, but I was like, that actually I almost was like, "Damn, if not for the ending, that would have actually maybe worked."
Yeah.
And yeah, it is just at least they're doing something interesting and new with this whole franchise at this point for the 5th movie. You just can't say that about a lot of others.
Yeah. Especially ones that are like that are prequels, that are surprise
Surprise
prequels,
prequels, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, how'd
And
you feel
then
about the twist ending?
I mean, it
Did you
wasn't a
pick up on
twist.
that at all with, like, I mean, obviously we know, but, like, just watching it, even though you know, it's like, I didn't even think about the fact that he works at a French restaurant and then, like, oh, he's gonna be on the trip to France or the plane to France, to Paris.
The France thing, like, it stuck out in my mind, but I think the only reason it stuck out is because I knew.
Yeah.
Um, because there was a lot of other stuff going on, but, like, outside of that, I was watching every scene to see if I picked up on the hints.
Mhm. Did
And,
you?
like, no, like, I didn't even, like, pick up on, like you mentioned during the acupuncture thing, like, I didn't even pick up on the flip phone,
Yeah.
like
Like, it's done very all the things that they do are very nonchalant, and the year that this came out, like, what, 2011? Like, it's not
Mhm,
even, like, maybe not everyone was on their phone all the time like we are now. I mean, it
yeah.
feels like forever ago, so I don't know. It's just something that they do it so nonchalantly, they don't make a show of him using a flip phone or, like, the date on the fucking spa certificate, like, they do it really well where, like, if you didn't know, it'd be a wonderful twist.
Yeah, I think the flip phone is, like, the only piece of technology that they reference that
Mhm.
has any sort of, like, date,
Wow.
timetable to it.
I guess the fact that
Um,
they work for a paper company could also be a good hint that they're probably not a modern company because it's like, a paperless world almost now.
I d I didn't even know it was a paper company until I read the trivia. I thought it
Exactly.
was a restaurant manufacturing hybrid.
That's probably why they did it. They're like, "We gotta throw all these things in there, it'll just mix them up and they won't know." And I guess it worked because 'cause you're like, "Wait." I did wonder that the first time. It took me a few times watching this movie to, like, fully understand the deal. But yeah, if I wish that, like, I hadn't seen it on Reddit, like, I think you said, or, like, you'd seen an article or someone posted it, like, it's been out for a long time, I get it, but I think, like, maybe I just needed that though to, like, actually watch it after, like, hearing 4 was such a shit show.
Mhm.
So maybe knowing that this one's good and a prequel, I was like, "Ooh, that gives me incentive to watch." That's really why
Yeah.
I watched it finally.
Well, and then this movie also did a great thing where, like, they have the prequel reveal on the plane where, like, you see the fight happen.
From a
You're like
different angle.
"Oh my god. Oh my god, that's it's Final Destination 1." He's on the plane, and then they, like, essentially reenact the the plane sequence from the first movie.
And he has the same death that Alex would have had in his premonition.
Yeah, and
Burning
it was
alive, stuck in his seat, and it's, like, gnarly. I'm like, "Whoa," like, it's even worse than, like, the first movie because they, like, show it fully.
yeah. Well,
Special effects have come a ways.
they have. And, like, that was the thing that I really liked of and not many prequels do it, where, like, they revisit a classic scene from an older movie. Like, the only one that I can think of off the top of my head that does it is, Star Wars Rogue One.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
that movie ends at with
the beginning for
of
the
New Hope,
yeah,
and so you get the Darth Vader scene in the hallway,
the
and, like,
best.
that scene was awesome, and then,
Best
like,
scene in the movie.
you don't know that it's gonna happen, and so then seeing it reimagined with modern technology was like, "Oh, this is crazy.
He doesn't just stand in one spot and move his hand every few minutes. Like they're like fighting. He's doing crazy ass shit. It's
Like, he kind of
incredible.
still does that, but it looks really good.
Yeah, I mean, like they have the whole thing where the girlfriend gets sucked out of the plane, and you see a bunch of people get sucked out in the original premonition, but like in this one, you see like she gets fucking cut in half by the wing afterwards.
Yeah.
You're like, damn. And then I do also love the fact that like it's also because so I don't know if you remember, as a Final Destination freak, I just know that like all the debris from Flight 180 was found in the water, right? So
Yeah.
like the friend who's at the funeral of that other guy and finds out that guy was like about to die anyways because he had like a mass in his brain or whatever. The landing gear is what falls and hits him and like breaks into the place. So it's like it's not technically the plane debris. It's like the landing gear that's like, you know, separate kind of. And I thought that was really nice touch to like, okay, it still fits, right? They did a lot. Like even you'd think that there'd be such a jarring difference seeing like the footage from the first movie in with this one like 11 years later. But I think that they did it in a really good way.
Yeah, like the original plane sequence, like they show very briefly like a hole in the plane and stuff flying out. They do everything else practically. Like you see the blood fly on the side of the walls.
Yeah.
Like you don't see so much of the opening in the plane. And then this, with technology, they were able to kind of flip it where they're like, let's show the stuff that they couldn't even do 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, let's do that.
It was really the comparison to Rogue One was a great mention because that is exactly what they did. They really enhanced it with like showing what it's like with today's technology, and it makes the first one even better. Because then I'm like, especially after that, I'm like, oh, now I gotta watch them all again. It's kind of it's genius. It's a fucking. I mean, maybe we should add this to the rank of time loop movies because this whole series might just be one giant time loop. These could be the same souls and all these different people dying in all these different ways. You never know.
I was really curious. Did they like do CGI to recreate like deep fake the young people in the fight on the plane, or like
no.
was that totally new casting? Because they nailed.
They used old footage, the footage
did.
from the movie, and then unused footage as well. And they were able to make it look like they were seeing it from the other side of the plane. I don't know how they did it, but they used all footage from the first movie.
I was like, this is 2011. CGI is not that good. That looks like the young kids from 2000.
Like, didn't Final Destination 4 come out like 2 years before this? How did technology advance that much? That doesn't make any sense. No, this one is like, they definitely had old footage to work with, but I don't know. I'm just thinking for like another Final Destination since they're bringing it back. I want one with Titanic being the disaster because I just rewatched that movie and that would be a wonderful movie for Final Destination. Just saying. Is one person could that be the ending of the movie? Because we all know what happens with the Titanic and the person's like, fuck. I don't know. And then there's survivors of that. I'm not sure. I mean, because there are people who survive. Hello, the movie.
This might be our next.
We got to do one more.
Our next podcast on this historical events that they should wrap Final Destination into.
I mean, honestly, there's so many. I mean, if we're thinking about Final Destination 3, they even said Lincoln. Like, let's do a Lincoln one. I want one where Lincoln has a premonition and cheats death, and then it finally catches up to him at the play.
They said the Twin Towers.
Yeah, they did.
9/11.
That's a little bit fresh. I don't know if they could do it. Although Final Destination doesn't care. They find a good death. They do it a year later, maybe the same year. They don't give a fuck. We should do another movie. There is none. We should do another episode, though, to talk about the next upcoming one because there's some fun details that they've released. And also, I think we've got ideas to pitch. Let's put an episode out there, see what people think.
All right. It's in the books. Next episode. Final Destination 6, what we want to see and what we think we should see.
The actual final stop on our Final Destination.
Well, until they announce the sequel to that one. So
yeah.
It's a never-ending train. So
it's a time loop, Jace. I'm telling you.
Until then, we'll see you next week. And watch all these movies because they're great.
Stay alive.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We out here.